Hi, welcome to Up Your Nerd Cred. Did you used to know everything that was happening in the Marvel and DC universes? Did finding out that some superheroes are from Marvel and some are from DC blow your mind? Has keeping track of everything that's happening there, and then realizing that we're talking about the comics universes, not the cinematic ones, and all these different universes with all their different multiversal crises have gotten a little bit out of hand? Well, don't worry. Up Your Nerd Cred is here to talk about the gods cosplaying as men, the men cosplaying as gods, and how much the cinematic universes are really leaving out. And at the end of each episode, you'll hopefully know a little bit more than you did and can up your nerd cred. I'm your casual nerd host, CiCi. I got to go to a book launch this week, and not gonna lie, I knew the story was erotic horror sci-fi. Look at the title, it spread me. It's about, what I did not expect, though, was a scene where the main character wanks to a bacteriophage in chapter 2.
Spoilers.
Chapter 2. I'm pretty sure that the rest of it is going to be a lot of fun. I didn't even tell you anything about I will liken it to... Anyway, I'm done with spoilers. So far, it's really interesting. So it's Spread Me, Sarah Gailey. It's pretty solid. So check it out.
All right. And I'm AM Diaz, your quote-unquote expert nerd host, whose hyperfixation on geek stuff just keeps getting worse as I get older. And I'm just, getting back from whatever stint of crazy things that kept me away last week, but I'm back and ready to jump into today's subject matter of a certain blue scientist who may or may not be a war criminal.
So, as a reminder, gang, we currently have shared custody of our expert nerd, and we've decided that we're going to set it up to make it easier for us all to have a few casual and expert level episodes. There's a lot of base stuff that, honestly, you have to be caught up on before we get to the expert level stuff, and aren't you glad that you listened to the casual level episode last week? You listened to the casual level episode from last week, right? Go listen to the casual level episode from last week. Okay, but...
Well, wait.
Clarifying the format doesn't mean that we're skipping out on the format altogether. So, podcast listeners, what are we nerding out about this week? As always, we're nerding out about all kinds of things. It doesn't just have to be heroes and villains. Alien lichens are making scientists naughty. Read the book. Acetaminophen isn't actually difficult to say, and the woo-woos are real hyped about the eclipse season being over. So, what am I nerding out about? Well, I'm really excited about the luscious brunch that Ali Forney is putting on this weekend. All right, so from the website, it is their first ever signature event celebrating and centering the women, lesbian, trans, and non-binary members of our community, okay? So the Luscious Brunch will raise critical resources to expand our life skills and training opportunities for the women, trans, and non-binary youth of the Ali Forney Center who are experiencing homelessness and family rejection because of their LGBTQ identity. Now, y'all know that I love me some Ali Forney Center, and so if you are possibly in Brooklyn on the 28th, 11 a.m., possibly able to go to the Brooklyn Bowl, you need to get your tickets and go. Or just get your tickets in general.
And meanwhile, I'm nerding out about The Rapture. No, seriously though, I'm nerding out about LA Comic-Con is this weekend, and I'm going to be there as part of 2 cosplay groups. So on Saturday, it's going to be Nightcrawler leading the Team Excalibur.
Ooh!
And then on Sunday, Robin will be reunited with the Titans.
Wait, is this the Robin with like the fat ass that we can bounce a quarter off of?
No, this is the super nerd with hyper fixations on the Robin with the big ass, Tim Drake.
Okay, so basically now that you don't have to wear glasses all the time, you could sit there and live your most nerd life without people seeing it. Got it. Okay, what else is going on?
Well, I'll also be there in a working capacity, so I'm going to be assisting over at the Giant Size Productions booth, where I will be working as a handler for the voice cast of X-Men 97.
I'm sorry. How much of the X-Men 97 voice cast are you going to be handling?
So, I'll probably be assigned to maybe one or two specific voice actors, but I will
Okay.
be there where we will have Lenore Zan as
Mm-hmm.
Rogue, Adrian Hugh, our Nightcrawler, AP Karlik as Morph, Holly Cho, our Jubilee, and Guy Augustini, Sunspot.
Ooh.
And that's not all.
What?
While we'll be doing that at booth 867 on the main floor, over
Okay.
in the Western Hall, we will be having the voice actors from Marvel Rivals. Yeah, so the video game voice cast, we're going to have a bunch of them, including Mara Janat, our Storm,
Nice.
Daniel Marin, Namor, Alpha Takahashi, Psylocke, Jordan Reynolds, Adam Warlock, and Alaya Mount, the Winter Soldier. So we're gonna have all of those voice actors at LA Comic Con. So I'm encouraging anybody who's in the LA area and feeling like meeting the people who made your childhood or who are voicing some of your favorite video game characters to come on down.
Oh my god, there's so many people for me to harass you into asking nicely and to consider being on the podcast. So, okay, I'm gonna go and we're gonna take a quick break so I can go and sit there and harass him very nicely to get people on the podcast, and we'll be back then to dive into our main question of the week. Hi, welcome back. So, the question burning me up this week is, of course, hang on, when did Beast go crazy? Now, you'll recall that we ended the previous episode with. And so, to answer the question, though, when did Beast go crazy? Honestly, based on the timeline that I can find, it looks like sometime around the mid 2010s. So we are going to have a lot to ask AM about because somehow, like, the nice, sweet, wisecracking scientist who quotes Shakespeare turns into someone who commits genocide and kidnaps people and things of that nature. And I'm not even sure that I'm actually covering all of the things that he's done. And honestly, I don't know how to explain how any of that comes to pass. Yeah. All right. So, what the hell happened? What happened to Mr. Like, don't judge a book, Indiana Jones professor, like, who fights? I know that Falls and Grace can be rough, but this seems like a full swan dive.
Yeah, it's kind of a loaded question on when it happened because, I mean, I've got a love-hate relationship with Beast personally.
Yeah?
Loved him in the animated series, loved him at parts of the comics, and don't really love him as much anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, if you look at his history going back as far as the original stories, he always had a little bit of a dark side to him. Like, in one of his earlier stories, him and Iceman were attacked by a bunch of just humans who anti-mutant shit, and Beast got fed up. He's like, you know what? I quit. I'm done with being with the X-Men. I'm done fighting for people who hate me. Screw y'all. I'm going home. And he ended up coming across a another mutant who his name's Eunice the Unstoppable, and he's kind of this mutant who has like a force field of sorts that pushes people away so no one can really affect him. And Beast
Okay.
decided the best way to take him out when this guy started going like full supervillain
Mm-hmm.
was to create a device that would essentially possibly even kill this man. Like it increased his power so much that he couldn't even like get food. He couldn't like be around anything. Everything kept being pushed away from him. And he
Oh.
basically, was going for an extreme thing. So we saw a dark side in Beast during that time. But it always gets overlooked because he not always went to that dark place. It was there, but he didn't always go for it, especially like when he eventually left the X-Men and joined the Avengers. He became the lovable goof, this big fuzzball who was adorable and had this amazing friendship with Wonder Man and just was cracking jokes and being playful all the time.
Yeah, I kind of noted that he had a bit of like, he was trying to give Cap a team up tramp kind of run for his money because he kept bouncing back and forth between teams.
Well, not really. For the longest time after he quit the X-Men, he was just an Avenger. He was just part
Oh,
of that team, and then eventually he left the Avengers to go into teaching, but then got pulled back into the Champions and eventually X Factor. But he wasn't really jumping consistently. It was kind of like he'd be a part of this team for a little bit, take a break, and then get asked to be another team.
I will
But
say his whole situation feels way like it gives me much more of the ick when you consider how much of all of the stuff that he ends up doing of his own free will. Like no one's possessing him, no one's mind controlling him. That's just yikes.
yeah, it's like I say, he's always been like this positive character, very intelligent, very, friendly and funny,
Hmm.
but always done he's done these things that are always just questionable. Like during the 90s, there was a character called Theoden,
Hmm.
and she had a power that would essentially allow her to, possibly help them develop a cure for the legacy virus, which was, essentially mutant AIDS at the time.
Right. Right. Actually, yeah, that's what I was saying. Like I had left off with
Yeah.
in the previous episode where like he's working on the cure for the legacy virus. It's very important. We're trying to make sure that mutant kind isn't wiped out. And, like he's not fighting Mystique or Moira about it, right?
No,
Nobody's
no. I mean, Mystique wasn't really a factor for the legacy virus until the end.
okay.
Moira, as the time she was believed to be human, was the first human to be infected with the legacy virus.
Right.
And so she had been starting to work on a cure long before that, but she continued doing it because she was at the time a good person and an ally to mutants.
Right.
And Beast was working alongside her. They were sharing notes and trying to see what they could do. But Beast, a problem that he has is when he gets desperate, he gets dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And Theoden was being pursued by Mr. Sinister,
Right.
who claimed that he could use her to maybe cure the virus. The X-Men did not want to give up Theoden because, she was an innocent and Sinister is a sociopathic monster.
Oh, really? Is
Beast,
he?
yeah. But Beast said, let Sinister take her
I'm
because
sorry. What?
he assumed that sacrificing Theoden to Sinister would save millions of other people. Yeah,
Okay.
and it did affect Beast, but still, and the thing is, it's just like we kept seeing these flashes of Beast where the arrogance, the ego, the anger, you'd see these flashes, which as somebody who's always trying to be the, fun-loving Beast, a lot of it is probably for show, and he's trying to mask those darker feelings. We always hear about that with these, idealist characters, like Professor Xavier. He's another character who he's an idealist. He wants the better time for humans and all that stuff, but he's also done some really shady crap.
Okay, so then, with the whole with the Age of Apocalypse situation going on where, Pestilence is doing the whole flowers for Algernon thing, like to Hank and everything like that. And then, when there's the whole Infectia kiss that is getting him to like, be weird about like settling down his system and such. Like, is it possible that this is something where, like, whatever his, like, form being all over the place post pestilence is like creating small enough shifts in like the brain chemistry? Or is it just full on like the flowers for Algernon bounce back just like made him less kind?
I mean, there has been some arguments about whether or not all of his shifting forms and all that stuff has affected his brain, and sometimes it legit has, like you said, with when he was infected back during X Factor and he started to lose his intelligence, the more strength he used and that sort of thing. So there was a lot of questions about that. But the unfortunate thing is, like I say, the darkness was always kind of there in Beast.
Mm-hmm.
And, we would see that at various times. Like, the Dark Beast is the purest personification of this version. From the Age of Apocalypse, he was a beast who went full blown mad scientist, Mr. Sinister's like equal. I
Okay.
mean, he was sociopathic, sadistic, and all that stuff. So this was like Beast, the darkest form of Beast. And, when you used to compare them, you're like, well, our Beast would never be anything like that.
Yeah.
But the thing is, again, we started seeing stuff. So during House of M, uh, Wanda said no more mutants and mutants were wiped out.
Right.
And Beast started getting desperate. He started seeking out the assistance of anyone who could help him. whether or not it was Doctor Doom, the Fantastic Four, the Hulk, and even Dark Beast. He and Dark Beast
Okay.
teamed up, and they went towards a family that consistently created mutants, and that
Wow.
was the Guthrie family. For those who aren't familiar, the Guthrie family are a Kentucky family who regularly, they're like a Appalachian Mountain type town kind of family,
Mhm.
and they have a lot of kids, and many of them are mutants, including Cannonball of the New Mutants,
Okay.
Husk of Generation X,
Ooh.
uh, Icarus of the second generation of New Mutants, and I believe her name is Arrow, Melody Guthrie, who 3 out of 4 of those kids can fly.
Wait, are they cousins or siblings?
Siblings.
Well,
Yeah.
Woody had like a really powerful guitar, and the other Guthries, I guess, can fly. That
Mhm.
works.
Well, I mean, it's like you had, Cannonball, Icarus, who had wings, and Arrow, who could fly, and then you got Husk, who, "I can take my skin off."
I'm sure that being able to take your skin off has some active
Oh,
uses.
very lots of uses, but it's still the grossest one out of all of them.
I mean, we can't look.
But
Sometimes you
anyways,
have like an Isabella, and sometimes you have a Mirabelle.
yeah. But, unfortunately, Dark Beast wanted to experiment on the Guthries, and Hank was willing to go along with it for a bit. He changed his mind eventually, but he went far deeper than we should have.
Okay, okay. So wait, hang on. Um, I did not even know that like the Professor McCoy that I remember from like the early 2000s, when it's Kelsey Grammer and Nicholas Hoult and such, I didn't know that like he had like this whole like pestilence and like flowers for Algernon situation. So like are we saying that like his whole like descent into like his whole Heart of Darkness thing is actually a slow burn that we just weren't getting if we weren't reading the comics?
I mean, it's one of those that no one ever thought he would go that far. Like, when you were reading the comics back then, 4 out of 5 times, he was the beast that you saw in the movies and in the cartoon.
Mhm.
He was not always this dark character, but there'd be these brief moments in the darkest periods of X-Men history where you would see that he seriously considered these darker approaches. And that makes sense because as much as Beast is fun-loving and funny during that period, he's
Mhm.
also a pragmatist. So he's a
Right.
scientist. He's looking at all the angles and he is willing to make the choices that other people would not. Kind of like if you've seen the Fantastic Four First Steps movie, where there's a discussion of whether or not, and spoilers for this movie, there's a discussion of whether or not they should hand over Franklin Richards, the God Baby, to Galactus. And while Sue, Ben, and Johnny are all saying, no, no, we would never do that, they look at Reed and they see that he has considered it. He's thought of it. He would never do it because he's a father, but the pragmatist in him says, we might need to do this.
Yeah, but Reed also sits there and spends a bunch of time making sure, which, as an aside, the movie is coming out on streaming pretty soon if it's not already. So you should be able to see this. So we're not going to be too spoilery. But Reed actually goes and makes a point of being like, look, just because I have considered it, just because I have thought about like these darkest possible paths does not mean that I have not sat there and worked my way. This is the darkest possible path. This is a path that I will not take. And I'm not getting the impression that Beast is doing this kind of thing. So I'm just like,
Well,
and
the
I'm
thing,
trying to wrap my head around
the
this
thing,
in part because,
the thing
like,
you have to remember This is the thing you have to remember. Reed has a family. He has his wife. He has his brother-in-law. He has his best friend who is close to him as a brother. He has a son. Hank McCoy, on the other hand, yeah, he has the family of the X-Men, but he has always felt a bit more like the outsider in the group a lot of times, especially among the original 5. He was the one with the least beautiful mutation. Giant hands, giant feet, eventually turning into a blue-furred monster that, could not hide his mutation.
I
So
mean, he
Hank
hit it for a short bit, but
Well,
then,
yeah, I mean, the weird, like, latex mask thing and all that stuff, and then but Hank has a lot of isolation going on with him. Like, there was a period where this is another, like, it's a lesser sin, but still one, especially in the gay community, we give side eye to.
Mhm.
And during the Grant Morrison run of New X-Men, Hank's girlfriend of many years, Trish Tilby, broke up with him after his most recent mutation.
Mhm.
He had gone from looking like a blue gorilla man to basically a knockoff Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, I've
He
seen
went
some of the
he turned
images
into
you've shown
yeah,
me.
he turned into, like, a cat creature with, like, 4 fingers and, a lion-like face,
Yeah.
and Trish couldn't handle it because, she had she'd with Hank off and on for ages, and Trish always put her career first, but she also just couldn't really handle the mocking that she was receiving, because now that Beast had turned even more animalistic, there was
Yeah.
accusations of, sleeping with mindless animals and that sort of thing, and,
It
you
does
know,
appear to be
Hank
much nastier than it was in 1963.
yeah, and Hank got petty. So when Trish met him again and apologized for how things had ended, he responded with, "Well, it's fine, I think I might be gay." He wasn't. He was not gay. He had no homosexual tendencies or anything like that. He did it purely to try to hurt Trish. But the thing is, Trish puts career first. So
Yeah.
what did she do? She announced that to the world. She made it news. And Hank rolled with it. He started giving interviews talking about being gay and all this stuff. But he wasn't. He was straight. He got called out by his friend Cyclops, who was having an affair at the time, mind you, and had no room to make judgments about what other people do. Called out Beast on the fact that what he was doing was shit. It was shady as fuck.
Okay, at least Cyclops' affair was him continuing to, like, have, like, heterosex and be an avowed heterosexual rather than, like, pretending to be a homosexual. And
And that's
also,
Well, I
this
mean,
is
the heterosexual part, irrelevant for Cyclops. I mean, this is just about Beast actually using it for clout.
it's the
Like,
lying part that I have a problem with. Yeah.
yeah, because he was saying, like, well, I could be an inspiration for all these people. It's like, yeah, but eventually people are going to realize that you were lying.
Yeah, and you know what? Luther Vandross was, the music for a whole lot of people in the 90s. And guess what? Him sitting there living his most single life instead of going ahead and being the homosexual that he actually was didn't help him at all.
Yeah. And the thing was, it never got followed up on. Eventually, it just kind of like tapered off and no one ever talked about it again.
Yeah.
But it's still one of those things that, especially people, gay people and queer people still find very,
Yeah.
inconsiderate because, like I said, Beast used gay people as a tool to try to hurt his girlfriend. Like being gay was something used to hurt her, and then he just kind of like rolled along with it like it was a joke.
Yeah. And
But
this is the kind of thing where, like, they always, whenever the people want to sit there and be like, see, it's totally a choice. And he's like, see, I'm choosing to be gay.
yeah, he
I'm,
treated even though he didn't pursue any same sex relationships or anything like that. He was just mouthing off, and it's stuff like that that made people start to really give Beast more side eye as a character.
mm-hmm.
And after that, for a while they just kind of wrote him a bit more sympathetic. During Josh Whedon's run of Astonishing X-Men, we had a point where he considered taking the mutant cure because he was just like, I'm becoming less and less human
Mm-hmm.
and I'm scared of what the next thing's going to happen to me.
Right.
So you started, and eventually he found a relationship and stuff like that with, this character, Abigail Brand, who was
Mm-hmm.
like the chief leader of Sword, which is the sister to Shield, but they
Mm-hmm.
handle space threats. You might have seen it in, what
The
was it?
Marvels.
WandaVision and the Marvels, yeah.
No, was Sword yeah, that was Sword in WandaVision.
Yeah,
But
WandaVision was
yes.
first introduced there. And, it was the relationship was interesting because she was into Beast in his animalistic form and all that stuff. She was, they had a lot of like friends to enemies or enemies to friends sort of things to lovers.
Mhm.
But she also kind of brought out a little bit of that dark side in him because Abigail was very much a Nick Fury type character, but with less qualms about crossing those lines.
That takes work.
Yeah, I mean, she was not afraid to cross lines and all that stuff. And it always kind of felt like she brought a little bit of that out of Beast in the relationship. And they were together for a while, but eventually I think it just kind of, they broke up off screen sort of thing.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's like we did start seeing a darker side to Beast during that period. But it really didn't start to kick in properly
Mhm.
until after the X-Men, essentially after the whole thing with Hope being sent into the future.
Right.
We talked about the Mutant Messiah baby
Yes.
or the crossover baby as some people have called it. Because every time
Crossover
she was around there was a
Messiah,
crossover.
she shows up at some point.
Yeah. But the team eventually moved to San Francisco. And during that time period, we talked about this before. Norman Osborn created his team of Dark X-Men, and they pushed the main team out into a secluded island called, God, I'm blanking on the name. I want to say Genosha, but no, it's not that.
It's
Utopia.
not Genosha.
Yeah,
Utopia?
no, it's Utopia. It was
No place?
Utopia. Yeah, it was Asteroid M. They turned it into an island. So the remains of Asteroid M, Magneto's old home base.
Okay.
But when Norman came to San Francisco, he went full fascist, and there was a protest against the actions of the government and against the Dark Avengers and the Dark X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
Beast was captured by Osborn and tortured during that time period.
Okay.
Cyclops sent his X-Force team, which was a Black Ops Wetworks team. They would go in and they would take out mutant threats by any means necessary.
So this
Cyclops
is when
had also
Cyclops and Wolverine were fighting, right? They were.
This was before that, actually.
They hadn't broken up at this point?
No, this was before that, but this was when we found out, because Wolverine was on X-Force.
Okay.
So Wolverine was part of this Wetwork team. He knew exactly what was going on. He was part of it. The breakup was because Wolverine didn't like the idea of Cyclops putting kids in the field.
Fair. I also agree with not putting kids in the field.
Yeah. But the X-Force team and their murder shenanigans were hidden from the X-Men team. Nobody knew except for X-Force itself and Cyclops.
Okay.
Cyclops even hid this information from Emma Frost, who at the time was one of the most powerful telepaths on Earth, and his lover.
Well, sometimes if you believe something really, really hard, you can make it happen.
Yeah, that's Cyclops. And the thing was, when X-Force came and started killing people to rescue Beast and the other hostages, Beast got horrified by this. He was horrified by the fact Cyclops had gone full-blown, as he saw it, Magneto.
Mm-hmm.
And he also found out that Emma Frost had been playing both sides and manipulating things as well.
Well, Emma.
Yeah, but she was doing it, she was manipulating Norman. But to do so, she had to lead the Dark X-Men and unfortunately capture some mutants to get on Norman's good side.
Okay.
But she was doing this all as a ploy so the X-Men could escape and save any mutants they could.
Okay.
It was complicated. Anyways, Beast confronted them both and quit the X-Men at that point because he felt like that he couldn't trust Cyclops. And
yeah,
he eventually left, joined Sword, worked with Abigail for a while, and he just started really separating himself from the X-Men for a while. He didn't really want to be anything to do with Cyclops' team or approach to mutant kind. He only rejoined the X-Men eventually when Wolverine reopened the school as the Jean Grey School for gifted students. Gifted youngsters, and he became like the professor there. But the entire time, there was a lot of animosity he felt towards Cyclops, particularly.
Okay.
And this was when we really started to see Beast just doing whatever he wanted to, and it just kind of it
really seems then like.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, it seems like then the memory that most of us have of Beast being a good professor is pretty much the same as Peter Parker and Mary Jane being in a relationship, despite the fact that One More Day was 20 years ago.
I mean, kind of, because it's just there'd be times where they would write him back to the Beast we liked,
right?
Where he was jovial and he was funny and stuff like that. Like during his time with Wolverine, with Wolverine's team at the Jean Grey School.
Mm-hmm.
He had a rivalry with a bunch of mini Nightcrawlers called Bamfs, and they would steal his coffee, and he'd be like, oh my God, how dare they?
My coffee!
Exactly.
Don't talk to me until I've had my caffeine.
And when Nightcrawler came back from the dead, he was so happy. You just saw so much joy and happiness, the fact that, one of the other X-Men that had been killed was back.
Mm-hmm.
So we still saw glimpses of the Beast that we loved, but it steadily became overwhelmed by just how bitter Beast became and how arrogant he became, because he started seeing that the people who led Cyclops, Emma, and so on, they couldn't really be trusted.
Yeah.
But Beast, he was the smartest man in the room. He knew what was going on. He was always 10 steps ahead of everyone, so he knew better than everyone else. And then X-Men versus Avengers happened.
Mm-hmm.
And we've spoken about this before. The Phoenix Five, a bunch of X-Men got possessed by the Phoenix.
Right.
Eventually, it broke down until it was only Cyclops, and he killed Professor Xavier. And despite everything that happened, Cyclops had been right. The Phoenix Force had come to Earth to power mutants again. And eventually, Cyclops escaped custody with the help of Emma Frost, Magneto, and Magic, and started their own school. But Beast was pissed. He did not think Cyclops deserved to be free. He did not feel like Cyclops did time for killing Xavier and for what he'd done to the world. So
Right.
Beast took an extreme. He decided that he was going to teach Cyclops a lesson by grabbing the original 5 X-Men from the past, the original 1960s team,
Huh?
with, the floating timeline. It's like, who knows what time it really was.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
original team.
But he took the original team from the past and brought them to the present to show Cyclops what they used to be and who they should be.
Okay, so then at this point, he's like officially called Dark Beast, which
Nope.
is no. Okay,
Not yet.
so when does he get?
Oh, no,
When
it
does
gets
he get
worse. That's the thing. Here's the
It
thing.
gets worse than that. How?
Well, here's the thing. When he brought the original 5 to the past, or to the present, something was blocking them from being able to take them back to the past. Meaning, if any of those kids got killed or something happened to them, the timeline would be ruined.
Yeah.
If something happened to them, the timeline that we had at that time could be wiped away. Because time travel is always weird in the Marvel Universe. Sometimes it splits a timeline, and sometimes it's the main timeline.
Right.
So they didn't know what was going to happen. And those kids got stuck in the main Marvel Universe for several years our time. And the dangers that Beast put the timeline in, he took no response. He's just like, well, we'll figure it out. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. Uatu the Watcher showed up and told him that the actions that Beast had been making disgusted him. Uatu, the being who watched Genosha fall, who watched the Dark Phoenix destroy an entire star system, who watched Galactus destroy planet after planet, thought that the arrogance and the ego and the just self-righteousness of the Beast was worthy of commenting on. He approached the Beast. He let the Beast see him and told him, "You disgust me, Dr. McCoy."
That's pretty impressive. Although
Yeah,
I will say that
even
Uatu and Nick Fury are a whole other conversation to have.
oh yeah, no,
Because if
that's
you would
something
talk
that
about
we don't.
looking at everybody and all of the stuff that's happened, but we're not talking about that right
Yeah.
now. But that is absolutely something that we'll probably be talking about next year, because that is some mess. Uatu is on
Yeah,
some mess sometimes,
and
oftentimes,
it got
most
so
times.
bad that in that same story, though, Uatu just basically told Beast that he was the worst mutant ever. The entire X-Men team, both Cyclops' team and the Jean Grey School, had an intervention for Beast, trying to talk him down, trying to get him to realize that his behavior was insane and dangerous, and that he was, spiraling, and Beast didn't want to hear it. He tried to throw it back at them. He was saying, like, none of you guys understand what's going on, making himself sound like he was the biggest man.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
So is this the part where he gets the official Dark Beast moniker now? When do
Nope.
we decide? When does he change his name then? Like, I keep hearing about Dark Beast, Dark Beast, Dark Beast.
He never officially changed his name to the Dark Beast, but everyone just eventually started to view him as the Dark Beast because we got to Krakoa.
Mm-hmm.
The mutants created a island nation, and they wanted to create a society and have just finally have a place all their own, a place where they would not be attacked and hurt by the humans who hated them.
Right.
But Beast at this point had become not just arrogant, but paranoid. And he was no longer the biochemist geneticist who was, just trying to find ways to fix and heal and, that sort of thing. He wasn't trying to cure the legacy virus anymore. Instead, he viewed the world as a threat to mutants. And so he decided he was going to create his own X-Force. Do you remember that team that he despised that Cyclops created?
So, wait. So the X-Force era is 2019-ish. So we lost Professor X and he's just like, fuck it, let's ride?
Well, Professor X at this point was back. Professor X
Okay.
had died, and then it is a complicated thing involving a character called Phantom X and the Phantom King and Psylocke, and it's a confusing mess, and even I'm still trying to wrap my mind around it, but eventually they just got back to base Professor X. So
Okay.
Xavier was back. Magneto and Moira McTaggart had created Genosha, Krakoa.
Uh-huh.
And, they had created their nation and all that stuff. But Beast decided that the mutants needed basically their own version of the CIA, their own version of the Central Intelligence Agency. And that was going to be his version of X-Force.
Mhm.
He recruited Wolverine, Kid Omega, Marvel Girl, Sage, and a handful of other mutants, and they would work on the international threats to Krakoa.
Okay.
But Beast went full-blown United States government at their worst points.
You realize that if you
Eh,
say that kind of thing, then they're going to come and flag us for Antifa activity.
well, we're talking about this stuff before now, but, it is what it is. So, if we need to edit, we can.
I mean, it's not like we would sit there and suggest that we are anti-Antifa because, I don't know how to
Oh,
explain
no, I'm
that
just flat out saying Antifa.
Yeah, no, I'm
I'm
saying, I'm just like, I
anti-fascism.
don't know how to explain that Antifa means anti-fascism in a way that does not
Yeah.
lead to just like, are you anti-fascism or pro-fascism? You have to pick one or
Yeah,
the
we are
two.
anti-fascism. We're gonna make a hard line there.
Team anti-fascist here. All right.
But, yeah, but the thing is, Beast started going, funny enough, fascist himself. So, he
Yeah.
started using it's a long, complicated story, there's a video that another person did about Beast recently that maybe we could, like, put in the, links on this thing and people could watch that and he could explain it better than us. But, essentially, Beast started using mind control technology and floral, stuff to try to mind control and other countries and leaders.
I'm sorry, what?
And yeah, he basically found was able to utilize this plant technology that would allow him to manipulate and control other government leaders, the ones
This
who wouldn't
feels
toe the line of Krakoa.
feels like he watched Blink twice or like he stole Zoe Kravitz's like notes as she was writing.
Yeah. I mean, pretty much it was. He just kept doing these really horrible things. He basically, if I remember correctly, he like killed a world leader's son, or at least brainwashed them and stuff like that. He turned a bunch of like other leaders into plant-like monsters by accident because he didn't know how to control this technology, and it got hacked. And he kept
Did I read
doing
correctly that he had a space whale gulag at some point?
He did, and he
How the hell
also
does that work?
one point he Krakoa allowed for a lot of, like, interesting technology, plant-based technology and stuff like that, because Krakoa as a living island could utilize its stuff in different ways.
That,
Yeah, yeah, but he even went so far at some point to kill Wolverine and then clone him and turn him into mindless henchmen. It got to the point where the X-Men were getting ready to throw him into the pit, which was the prison below Krakoa that only the worst mutants got sent to.
okay, so like their full Heart of Darkness descent that this guys go down. Like
Mhm.
Krakoa is particularly tough for mutant kind. I'm not suggesting the Krakoa era is now particularly tough. And one of the things that we got to point out is the fact that the fearful get draconian. The more fearful you get, the more draconian you get. That's a whole thing. But there was a panel that you showed me once where Wolverine was like literally pleading with Beast that, these actions aren't him. You know, this monstrous, and Beast is just like, yeah, this monstrous version of me might be who I have been all along. Like, how the hell does this square with Wonder Man's best friend?
That's the thing. I mean, there's we'll actually get to a Wonder Man connection in a bit, but yeah, that was the thing. It's like the Beast that we saw during this period was nothing like the Beast we remember. I mean, even though he had returned to a more like ape-like form by this point,
Mm-hmm.
thanks to his, you know, time traveling younger self, they were able to transform him from the cat creature back into a bit more like ape man form.
Okay.
And despite having that regression back to a point that he considered a better time in his life,
Mm-hmm.
he started to change. Like
How?
physically, he started to become more animalistic. He started to become more not like the cat version, but more like a monster, like almost like an ogre or goblin type thing. He started getting like these really sharp underfangs, and his face just looked more cruel and violent.
I mean, if you're gonna
And
sit there and Dorian Gray your way through, like, genocide and
but that
such,
was the thing.
yeah.
It was almost one of those things where the darkness inside him started to reflect the darkness outside. Like you said, the Dorian Gray
Dorian
thing.
Gray.
At this
If you're
point,
hateful, it's all over your face.
he decided that he could not trust the leaders and mutants of Krakoa to take care of themselves. So he ran away from them. He ran away from the X-Men when they were getting ready to just come down on him. And he started to just seclude himself with his army of Wolverine clones
Mm-hmm.
and his army of Beast clones.
I'm sorry,
He
he
created
cloned himself?
he cloned himself a bunch of times, and he basically just created a bunch of yes men who would agree with all of his insane plans.
Did multiplicity not come out in this universe? What happened? Making a bunch of copies of the clones is not going to make the clones clever.
Well, I mean, they were arguably as smart as him, but more submissive to what he wanted. Yeah, so,
Okay.
and, at this point, Krakoa fell and things were going to hell. And Beast was full blown a villain at this point. There was nothing left to redeem.
Mm-hmm.
But Beast surprisingly created a way out for himself,
Mm-hmm.
but not for himself.
Who
He
himself?
created
How self?
So he created, not created, but he saved. So I've explained how the resurrection protocols worked, right?
Right.
That
The
they would
5 X-Men
down,
and with
and
the
Xavier would use
Cerebro
Cerebro
background. Yeah.
to create, backups of all mutant memories and stuff like that. And the person a mutant was. Beast saved one of his earlier incarnation backups
Okay.
from the time where he was one of the Avengers.
Ooh.
And Sage and the rest of X-Force found that backup and decided the only way to take out the Beast was with the Beast.
Fair.
So they used the Resurrection cloning tanks that Hank had to create one more copy of the Beast. One who had not become this dark, corrupt, jaded, angry, violent monster.
So we still
Instead, he
have
was...
Wonder Man's bestie.
We do, but we have Wonder Man's bestie who has come back to a world where people look at him with fear and hatred.
Even though,
Where his
wait,
closest allies don't trust him anymore.
is he in humanish form or like,
He's the blue
feline
beast
form?
from he's the blue beast from that you see in X-Men 97 and who was bouncing around during the Avengers years.
Okay, so we have good beasts who everybody remembers in the face, and then we have Dark Beast who has wandered off. What happened to Dark Beast?
Well, eventually this comes into a huge, final act with the Dark Beast. I mean, I have problems calling him Dark Beast because there's another Dark Beast, This
How many
isn't the
Dark
same.
Beasts are there?
There's the Age of Apocalypse Dark Beast who went from the Age of Apocalypse to the main universe.
Right.
This is the one who kidnapped Hank at one point and posed as him during the Onslaught storyline.
Okay.
And then we have the mainstream Beast, 616 Beast, who just became a darker version of himself. But again, he never called himself the Dark Beast.
Okay. All right. I'll take it.
Yeah, but the resurrected Hank broke away from X-Force and sought out the one person he could look to as a friend, Wonder Man. And for those of you who aren't familiar, Wonder Man, his name is Simon, and he's an actor who became one of the Avengers and is very intertwined with Scarlet Witch and the Vision. A lot of stuff there, but...
They mapped Vision's brain patterns off of Wonder Man, and Scarlet Witch dated Wonder Man for a little bit as well. Please refer back to our Juan the Maximoff episodes for this sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. But he went to Simon. But the thing was, Beast had isolated himself so much over the years that Simon and him weren't really close anymore. They weren't really friends, which horrified Beast. This earlier version of Beast finding out that his best friend and him had barely spoken in years. And
I don't know how I would possibly be able to handle even the conceit of you and me not speaking for days, years.
Yeah.
Oh.
And Simon and Beast did reconnect, and them along with X-Force eventually took down and killed the original Beast. So the OG 616 Beast, the one that we followed since the 60s, is dead.
Okay.
What we have now is the clone of the 616 Beast, so you can argue it's still him, but this is the one who has not gone through the trauma of the legacy virus, who has not gone through the trauma of M-Day, or who has not been tortured by Norman Osborn. But he's also someone who has seen the records, has heard the stories, and this Beast that we have now, who is currently on Cyclops' team in Alaska, he's scared to death of what he will become. Not just what kind of mutation he'll take, but the kind of person he is, because he wonders that when Beast said to Wolverine, maybe this is who I've always been, that is what the Beast that we have now is terrified of.
So, do we have an idea of what, naughty Beast, bad Beast, we do not approve Beast's body count was. I'm just trying to figure out, like, to a certain extent, finding out that you have become, a serial killer, a genocider kind of person. Coming to terms with that is going to stress you out the same way that, like, the child of an
Yeah.
alcoholic is going to feel really awkward about drinking, or the child of a kid who died from, their parents died from lung cancer is going to be real mad about smokers. Like,
Well, that's the thing. It's like Beast's crimes are quite numerous at this point. I mean, there's the political ones that he's done, the genetic manipulation ones that he's done, the ethical ones, blatant war crime ones, weapons of mass destruction sort of thing. And we didn't even talk. Oh, we even skipped over his full genocide when he was part of the Illuminati, where they destroyed an entire universe
was
to
it
try
an
to save their own
incursion
universe.
situation?
It was, yes.
Uh,
And Beast's actions resulted in a genocide. So his crimes might rival or exceed those of Jean Grey when she was in Dark Phoenix.
okay. Well,
And it's understandable why the Beast we have now. And the thing is, you see it the way he's written these days. While he is an earlier version of the Beast, he's not jovial. He's not bouncing around making jokes all the time. He's very withdrawn and morose and scared.
I mean, they turned Speedball independence because he wasn't fast enough or something. If seeing horrors can absolutely 100% change you. So,
Yeah.
we're gonna take a quick break, and we will be back for our thrilling conclusion. We so welcome back to our thrilling conclusion. Given everything that we have seen, we've talked about with Beast, can Dr. McCoy be redeemed in universe after all of this? Scarlet Witch MD'd everyone, and Magneto has been Magneto, but they seem to be able to show their face among mutant kind after some time. Can Hank?
So this is the thing that makes it, more complicated. So with Magneto, as much as he's been more of an X-Man than he's been a villain lately,
Mm-hmm.
people always are going to look with him as the boogeyman of the X-Men. Scarlet Witch, she was able to redeem herself, thankfully, because she allowed mutants to be resurrected across time without, no matter how long you've been dead, they can come back. And so that's given her some, more grace.
Mm-hmm.
But certain characters just never fully allowed redemption as much as they want and as much as we, the fans, want them to have.
Mm-hmm.
Magneto, Emma Frost, and probably even Wanda are always going to have people bringing up the sins of their past.
Right.
Hank, especially what we have now with Hank McCoy, it's similar, but also a different thing entirely. Because Emma, Magneto, Rogue, they're still the same people they were from the start.
Mm-hmm.
They have to live with their memories of what happened. The Hank McCoy who did these atrocities is dead. He's gone. He, as far as I know, is not coming back anytime soon. What we have now is the Henry McCoy of the 80s. He is someone who did not experience, the genocide of the Illuminati. He was not selling out people to cure the legacy virus or the bring back mutants. This is a Hank who he might have done some shady things like what he did with Eunice,
Mm-hmm.
but he was still a good person at that point. But his memory is something different. It's like Hank's memory of what happened is basically stops around the time of the Avengers team. That's where his memory is. And he has a bunch of new memories now, ever since being resurrected and brought back. And
Yeah.
he's been told about what has happened, but the things that happened weren't him. Even if he feels like it was, because it was him in a way.
I
It was a
mean,
version of him that,
if your identical twin is, a
but
bank robber, even if it's your face all over the news reels, it's not you who did it.
yeah, but that's the thing. It's like, for him, it is, because this wasn't his twin. This wasn't like somebody who had his face and, but has always been his own person. They were the same person from birth until a certain point, and then they split off. So with Hank, even if he doesn't remember what happened, he knows what happened because he read about it. He was told about it. He may have even gotten like psychic memories put in him, because who knows what he asked like Emma or Jean to do for him when he rejoined them.
Yeah.
So with this Hank, it's going to be more, will everyone else forgive him? Maybe, because he's not the same Hank that they knew. But he's never going to forgive himself. He's never going to forgive what his previous version did. And there's still going to be people who are going to look at him and wonder, when does he go dark? When does he become the bad guy? When does he sell us out for his ego or his belief that he knows better than everyone else? So he might get redemption, or at least the memory of Hank McCoy, the Beast, will get redemption.
Hmm.
But I don't know if he'll ever be forgiven, by himself especially.
I don't know that he should be forgiven because, realistically speaking, and this may not be as kind as the government may want me to say about such things, but, if you are somebody who gets to a point where there are multiple people who have died because of you, multiple like bloodlines that are completely cut off because of you, you have to carry that guilt. And it's not one of those reasons that I would never run for the kind of political office where I might have to suggest that, or I might be involved with having to,
Make the messy decisions.
make the vote to say that we're going to go and kill people. I specifically I refused to do criminal law whenever I was practicing because I did not have the capacity to be that person. And on one hand, having people able to do that is important. We have to have a Nick Fury to make the play, but Nick Fury making the play is also kind of the reason that Uatu's able to be a watcher.
Yeah, no,
So,
it's like you say, it's complicated because the original Beast, no, there's no redemption for him. He died thinking what he was doing was the right thing to do.
yeah.
So that Beast, there's no redemption for him. But the Beast that we have now, the one who was an Avenger and who, came into this world with no memory of that stuff, it's not fair for him to be held to the same standards as that Beast. And truthfully, I don't think many of the X-Men will hold him to those standards because of the fact that they know this one isn't that one.
I mean, the one who committed the actual crimes is no longer with us.
Yeah. But again, it's one of those where it's like, even if they know this one is a good person, this one does not ever dream of pulling those kinds of same atrocities that one did.
The potential is still there.
Well, it's not even just the
The
potential,
history
it's
is
the
still
fear.
there.
No, but that's the thing. It's like, it's not even just that. It's the fear. The fear that the potential could be there. The fear that the history could be repeated with this new version of the same man.
Even if he doesn't think he's repeating the same.
Yeah, because that was the thing. Hank, after a point, was delusional. He thought everything he was doing was fine and right, and he would be vindicated in the end. That's the way he saw everything that he did. This Beast, however, is terrified of having that kind of mindset, of being that kind of person. So there's the hope that this one learned from the mistake. Ironically, this one learned the lesson that the original Hank was trying to teach Cyclops. By seeing the person that he became, he could stop becoming that person.
Okay.
So there's that
well,
hope. But Hank himself, the person who's I don't think ever going to really be able to forgive himself, is the new Hank. Because even if that wasn't him, it was still him, and he's still going to hold that responsibility over his head for the rest of his life.
You know what? If you put in barriers and guidelines for yourself, I feel like that's something that's pretty useful. Okay, good to know. Take a moment and contemplate who it
This was a
is
dark
that-
episode.
Yeah, to say there but for the grace of God is very, very real. So let's.
But which god are we talking about? Phoenix, Storm, Thor?
If Thor or Wonder Woman falls on your car, is that covered by insurance? Anyway, that is actually an episode that we have planned for down the way. As you're looking at your calendar, here's a few things that we have that you can mark for your own history. We have September 26, 1861, Fantastic Four debuts The Mole Man, Marvel's first supervillain of the Silver Age. September 28th, 1942, Wonder Woman introduced the villain Cheetah. Ooh,
One of many.
So
Yeah,
we also
there's so many different versions of cheetahs.
We also have on September 29th, 1959, the first appearance of Supergirl's pet, Streaky the Super Cat.
Another one with variations.
And October 1st, 1997, we have JLA #1, where Grant Morrison and Howard Porter basically did a full definitive Justice League relaunch, reuniting the Big Seven.
Yeah, this was a big one because the Justice League for a long time was kind of meandering during this period.
Mm-hmm.
We had a lot of weird periods. Justice League Detroit, the more comedic Justice League International, which was still good, but it was different. This was the first time that we'd gotten, like, the iconic heroes reunited in a long time, since basically the Satellite era.
Beautiful. And also coming out this week, and by this week, the animated Marvel Zombies series has actually premiered, so you need to be looking at that. And also, if you have not gotten your digital slash streaming copy of Fantastic Four First Steps, you've already been spoiled by us. Okay, just go ahead and get it if you haven't seen the movie in theaters for some reason.
Also, while we're mentioning streaming movies, Superman is also now on HBO Max. So if you haven't had a chance to see our favorite Kryptonian boy, now's a good time to do that.
Now's time to mention that we have an Instagram. We're on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube, and we're working on expanding our reach. So if you like the episode, make sure to rate, review, subscribe, especially if you're trying to up your nerd cred. You can follow us across Instagram at Up Your Nerd Cred Pod. And if you're looking for me across platforms, I'm at Kelsey Davis.
And I am at AM Diaz. Come yell at me about your continuity errors and show me your fan art, either way. And if you have a burning question that you want to discuss with us so you can up your nerd cred, make sure you like and subscribe, leave comments, and if we pick your question, we'll shout you out at the discussion segment.
Also, please make sure to get your friends to also like and subscribe to the pod, and like your family and any of your coworkers. Trust not to be weird about listening to the same podcast as you, and the people on the bus.
And good night, everybody.